stop scrolling, because the man you're about to watch didn't inherit billions, didn't come from a famous family, didn't have powerful connections. He arrived in America as an immigrant with almost nothing, and one day he built a company so powerful that it became the engine behind the world's AI revolution, a company worth over $1 trillion. Now ask yourself something. How does an ordinary immigrant become one of the most influential people on Earth? Was it luck, talent, or was it something far more powerful? Something most people never have the courage to do? Because here's the truth. Every billionaire's story looks obvious after they've already won. But before the success, there was uncertainty, fear, failure, moments when quitting would have made perfect sense. This isn't just another billionaire story. This is the story of impossible decisions, sleepless nights, relentless discipline, and a vision so unbelievable that almost nobody could see it. Imagine betting your entire future on an idea the world doesn't even understand. Imagine risking everything while everyone around you tells you you're making the biggest mistake of your life. Would you still keep going? Most people wouldn't. That's why most people never change the world. The man you're about to meet didn't simply build a company. He helped build the future. Every AI breakthrough you see today, every powerful chatbot, every revolutionary image generator, every self-driving technology, every next-generation robot exists because one man refused to think like everyone else. But here's the part almost nobody knows. Before the headlines, before the billions, before becoming one of the most respected CEOs on the planet, he was simply a young immigrant, trying to survive, trying to belong, trying to prove that impossible dreams aren't impossible at all. And the first step of that journey was far more painful than anyone could have imagined. So don't skip this story, because by the end of this documentary, you won't just understand how Jensen Huang built a $1 trillion empire. You'll understand why the biggest thing standing between you and your dream isn't your background. It isn't your money. It isn't your education. It's the moment you decide to stop thinking like everyone else. Because every empire begins with one person who refuses to accept an ordinary life. The journey had begun, but surviving was much harder than dreaming. America wasn't waiting with open arms. It offered no guarantees, no shortcuts, no promises. Every day became another test, a new language, a new culture, a new world. Everything felt unfamiliar. Everything felt difficult. But sometimes, the hardest environments create the strongest people. As a teenager, he wasn't thinking about becoming a billionaire. He wasn't dreaming about trillion-dollar companies. He was simply trying to become better than he was yesterday. While most people look for comfort, he looked for knowledge. Books became his teachers. Curiosity became his greatest advantage. He wanted to understand how things worked, how computers worked, how technology could change the world. Because extraordinary people ask different questions. They don't ask, how can I make money? They ask, how can I solve a problem nobody else sees? That single difference changes everything. Years passed. The dream grew bigger. He studied harder, worked longer, sacrificed more. Every challenge became another lesson. Every failure became another classroom. Most people fear failure. Successful people collect it, because every mistake teaches something success never can. Eventually, he earned a place at one of America's top engineering schools. For many people, that would have been enough. A great education, a stable career, a comfortable life. But comfort has never changed the world. Comfort creates employees. Vision creates leaders. After graduating, he joined the technology industry. The pay was good. The future looked secure. His career was moving in the right direction. Most people would have stayed exactly where they were. Why risk everything when life is already comfortable? Because deep inside, he could see something others couldn't. Computers were changing. The future was changing, and one day, the entire world would depend on extraordinary computing power. Almost nobody believed it. Technology companies were focused on the present. He was thinking decades ahead. That's what vision looks like, seeing tomorrow while everyone else is still living in yesterday. Then came the decision, the one that separates dreamers from builders. At just 30 years old, he walked away from security, away from certainty, away from a comfortable paycheck. Imagine telling your family, I'm leaving my stable job to start a company. No guarantees, no investors waiting, no billion-dollar valuation, just an idea, and 3 people who believed in it. Most people would call that reckless. History calls it courage. In 1993, inside a small restaurant, over simple meals, 3 engineers made a decision that would quietly reshape the future of technology. They founded NVIDIA. No fancy office, no massive funding, no worldwide attention. Just 3 people, 1 vision, and countless unknowns. They believed graphics processors could become far more powerful than anyone imagined. The world didn't understand. Investors doubted them. Competitors ignored them. Success looked very far away. The early years were brutal. Money disappeared quickly. Deadlines became impossible. Pressure grew every single day. There were moments when the company came frighteningly close to failure. One wrong decision could have ended everything. Imagine carrying the weight of an entire company's future on your shoulders. Imagine knowing that dozens of employees depend on every decision you make. Would you keep moving forward, or would fear convince you to quit? That's the difference. Entrepreneurs don't eliminate fear. They learn to move despite it, while competitors chase short-term profits. They kept building, improving, learning, adapting, again and again and again, because success rarely belongs to the fastest. It belongs to the people who refuse to stop. Think about your own dream. How many times have you changed direction simply because progress felt slow? How many opportunities have you abandoned just before they had a chance to grow? Greatness doesn't arrive overnight. It arrives after years of invisible work. The world celebrates billion-dollar companies. It never sees the nights filled with uncertainty, the failed products, the rejected ideas, the constant fear of running out of time. Every empire has a chapter where failure seems inevitable. Most people quit in that chapter. Very few keep writing. And those few change history. But NVIDIA's greatest challenge was still waiting. A challenge so massive that it would either destroy the company forever or transform it into one of the most valuable businesses on Earth. And nobody could have predicted what happened next. For years, the company survived, but survival is not the same as success. Every new product felt like a gamble. Every decision carried enormous risk. One mistake could erase everything they had spent years building. Then, disaster struck. One of NVIDIA's early products failed. Sales were disappointing. Money was running out. Investors were losing confidence. The company was burning through cash at an alarming rate. There was one terrifying question hanging over every meeting. How much time do we have left? Weeks? Months? Or only days? Imagine walking into work every morning, knowing your company might not exist by the end of the year. Imagine looking into the eyes of hundreds of employees, knowing their future depends on one decision. Most CEOs protect themselves. They play it safe. They stop taking risks. But great leaders understand something different. Sometimes playing it safe is the most dangerous decision of all. Instead of surrendering, he made one of the boldest decisions of his life. He changed everything. The company shifted its entire focus. It wasn't easy. It wasn't guaranteed. It was a gamble that could either save NVIDIA or destroy it forever. Many people thought the company was finished. Competitors were bigger, stronger, better funded. The odds were against them. But history has never been written by the people with the best odds. It's written by the people who refuse to quit. Day after day, the team kept building, testing, failing, improving, again, and again. Slowly, something extraordinary began to happen. Their graphics processors became faster, smarter, more powerful. Gamers noticed first, then developers, then the technology industry. The company that had once been fighting to survive was beginning to lead. But the biggest opportunity hadn't arrived yet. Years passed. Technology continued to evolve. Artificial intelligence was no longer science fiction. It was becoming reality. Most companies saw AI as another trend. He saw something much bigger. He believed AI would transform every industry: healthcare, education, transportation, science, business, entertainment, everything. It was a vision so bold that many people dismissed it. Once again, he was thinking 10 years ahead, while everyone else was thinking about tomorrow. So NVIDIA invested billions, not because success was guaranteed, but because they believed the future belonged to those willing to build it. For years, very few people noticed. The world kept talking about smartphones, social media, apps. Meanwhile, NVIDIA kept building the technology that would quietly power the future. Then, everything changed. Artificial intelligence exploded. The world suddenly realized it needed enormous computing power. Exactly the kind of technology NVIDIA had been building for decades. Overnight, the company everyone had underestimated became the company everyone needed. Governments wanted its technology. Universities needed its chips. The biggest technology companies in the world lined up to buy its products. The same vision people once doubted had become one of the most valuable ideas in history. The company crossed $1 trillion valuation, not because of luck, not because of perfect timing, but because of decades of patience, discipline, and relentless belief. Think about that. The world celebrated the $1 trillion milestone, but almost nobody celebrated the 30 years of struggle that came before it. That's how success works. People admire the destination. They ignore the journey. They celebrate the victory. They forget the sacrifices, the sleepless nights, the failed products, the impossible decisions. That's why so few people achieve extraordinary things. They want overnight success, without surviving the years nobody sees. The immigrant who arrived with almost nothing had become one of the most influential leaders in technology, not by following the crowd, but by seeing a future the crowd couldn't imagine. His story proves something extraordinary. You don't need to predict the future perfectly. You simply need the courage to prepare for it before everyone else does. But if you think this story is only about building $1 trillion company, you're missing the biggest lesson of all, because his greatest achievement was never the money. It was the mindset that made everything possible. And that's the lesson that could completely change your life. In the end, this story was never about money. It was never about becoming a billionaire. And it was never about building $1 trillion company. It was about one decision. The decision to believe in a future that nobody else could see. Think about it. The world remembers the company, but history remembers the person who had the courage to build it. Every empire begins the same way, not with billions, not with investors, not with perfect timing, but with one ordinary person who refuses to accept an ordinary life. Jensen Huang didn't control where he was born. He didn't control the struggles his family faced. He didn't control how difficult the journey would become, but he controlled something far more powerful: his response. And your response to life's challenges will always matter more than the challenges themselves. Maybe you don't have money. Maybe you don't have connections. Maybe people have already told you you'll never make it. Good, because history has never been written by people who had perfect beginnings. History is written by people who keep moving long after everyone else has stopped. The world will always reward people who solve difficult problems, not people who make perfect excuses. Ask yourself, what problem are you solving? What dream have you been delaying? What idea have you been hiding? Because you're afraid people will laugh. Remember, every revolutionary idea sounded impossible until someone proved it wasn't. Every successful company looked like a crazy risk before it became a global empire. Every legend was once a beginner who simply refused to quit. The truth is, you don't wake up one day and become extraordinary. You become extraordinary through ordinary actions, repeated every single day. One book, one skill, one difficult conversation, one failure, one improvement. Again, again, and again. That's how greatness is built, brick by brick, day by day, year by year. Most people overestimate what they can do in 1 month, but underestimate what they can achieve in 10 years. The future belongs to those who are willing to work, even when the rewards are invisible. So stop waiting. Stop comparing yourself to others. Stop believing you need perfect conditions. You don't. You need commitment. You need discipline. You need the courage to take the first step, even when you can't see the entire path. Because one decision today can completely change your life tomorrow, just like it changed his. One immigrant, one vision, one company, a future that transformed the world. Now it's your turn. What story will people tell about your life? Will they remember someone who waited or someone who built? Will they remember your excuses or your courage? Because every day you delay your dream, someone else is building theirs. Don't let fear become your biography. Let action become your legacy. If this documentary inspired you, don't let the inspiration disappear the moment this video ends. Turn it into action. Open that book. Start that business. Learn that skill. Make that phone call. Take that first step. Because success doesn't belong to the smartest. It doesn't belong to the richest. It belongs to the people who refuse to stop. If you believe ordinary people can build extraordinary lives, hit the like button. Subscribe to Rise from Zero for more true stories of people who changed the world from nothing. And in the comments, write these 4 words. I will build mine. Not for the algorithm. Not for me. For yourself. Make it a promise. Because every great empire begins with one decision, one step, one person who refuses to quit. Your story doesn't begin when the world believes in you. It begins the moment you believe in yourself.